Hello, welcome to Little Vintage World and welcome to Tudor Timber, a whole month devoted to all things to do with Tudor history. Today, in this video, I'm going to be talking about my favourite historical fiction books on the Tudor period. Now again, as non-fiction, I have 5 to share with you, so I'm very excited to share them because I love them all. But very briefly, an honourable mention, but a book that I don't have to share with me, is Jean Plaidley. Now, Jean Plaidley has written a lot of historical fiction novels, and she's written quite a few on the Tudor period. I think her novels are really great because I think they're generally quite accurate, and that's what I like about them. Sadly, I don't have any to hand, but I'm hoping to build up my collection again very soon. But let's get into the actual mentions. Now, all of these books I am mentioning because not only do I think they're really good, but I have some sort of emotional connection to them, and I have managed to put them in some sort of order. So let's get started. Okay, in at number 5 is one that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but it is this one. This is In the Shadow of Lady Jane by Edward Charles, a novel. So this you can kind of work out what it's about. So this is about Lady Jane Grey. But what I really like about this book is Edward is in it, as in Edward VI, the boy king. And there aren't a lot of books out there on Edward VI, sadly, and I find him fascinating personally. He's someone who obviously died very young, which is such a shame, but who displayed some real interesting insights before he passed away. He was such a devout Protestant. I think he would have been more of a tyrannical ruler than his father would have been, because of just the way he was displaying towards the late part of his life and the ideas that he had. I find fascinating. It's nice to have a novel where he is in that, because of course he was an integral part of Lady Jane Grey and her story. So that's why I really like this one, and it's really good. You should definitely go and pick it up. The next one is actually a series that I want to recommend you, but I didn't bring off all the books because they'd be super duper heavy, but I'm just going to point to them. These. So this is the 6 Tudor Queen one. My favourite is this one, which is the newest one. This is Catherine Howard, The Tainted Queen, of course by Alison Weir. You'll see a little Alison Weir theme appearing in this video. This one's my favourite, but I do think they're all wonderful. So it's a 6-part series on the queens of Henry VIII. So we start with the beginning, which is here, and that's Catherine of Aragon. Then we go through, so Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard, and then of course the 6th one will be Catherine Parr. And they are wonderful. They're extremely beautiful books on the outside and inside too, but they are wonderful books because they focus on the woman. They do not focus on what's happening around the woman, but what's happening to said woman. So in this one, we literally just focus on Catherine, and we follow Catherine from her childhood up to her death. And it's wonderful because a lot of historical fiction you read, it focuses on them, but what's happening around them, not necessarily them as a person, and that's what I want to see. So yeah, I was so happy to read this book. I mean, the series for me is very much a mixed bag. Some are stronger than others. This one was a 5-star, but some others were like 3-star, but it's well worth the series. You whiz through them super quickly, despite them being around 500 pages each. So definitely get your hands on them if you haven't done already. Okay, we're into my top 3 now. At number 3, I have this one, which you can barely see because it's rubbed off. That's how old this copy is, but it is The Secret Diary of Anne Boleyn by Robin Maxwell. This is a very well-loved copy. Again, it's one of those books that I've had on my shelf for a really, really long time, and I just think it is wonderful. So this is a fictional diary of Anne Boleyn. So what we have is this fictional diary of Anne Boleyn, but it's in the hands of her daughter Elizabeth I. And Elizabeth I is reading her mother's story. Oh, it's just wonderful. As you know, Elizabeth I is my historical heroine, so anything about her I'm all over. But I thought this was done so well because it's that emotive side, and you never get books that talk about Elizabeth's relationship with her mother, which of course was a very difficult one because of course Anne died when Elizabeth was, only 2.5. So of course she didn't have the traditional relationship with her mother, but when Elizabeth was queen, she did a lot of things involving her mother and the family. A lot of people that she employed were relatives of herself and Anne, and other little bits that, you know, are kind of like the nod to Anne, so to speak, and it's lovely to have that sort of in a book. This is a book that I fly through every time I read it. It's not the most accurate. At the end something happens, obviously won't talk about, but something happens at the end which is very inaccurate, but it's, you know, lovely to think that it would have happened, sort of thing. But it is just, it's lovely. It's lovely. If you love Elizabeth or Anne Boleyn, you will enjoy it. Okay, my number 2 book is another Alison Weir. This is The Lady Elizabeth, Her Fight for Survival and for the Crown. Look at this cover. I just love it. And I have to say, I also love the touch of the end papers. I think they are wonderful. So this is a letter that Elizabeth wrote to her sister Mary, and she did this so a postscript couldn't be added. And I love touches like that in books. Now, this book I will show you is very old. Well, it's not very, very old, but it's battered, bruised. It's been sun damaged, and that is because I have read and reread this a lot. I bought it when it first came out and I devoured it in, I think I read it in a day. I remember I read it in the garden when I was living with my parents, and it was just wonderful. So this book is about literally Lady Elizabeth, so before she's queen, so her childhood essentially, and it is absolutely wonderful. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything that is put in here. There is also a sequel, which is this one here, the black and the gold one, called The Marriage Game, which we won't talk about, but this one is really good. If you are like me and you love Elizabeth, then I think you'll really like this one, because this just, I really like when historians take one part of Elizabeth's life. I mean, Elizabeth was 25 when she came to the throne, and she ruled for nearly 45 years. So that's a really long time to talk about in one book. And I like that Alison's just taken her younger years and put that in historical fiction. And yeah, I just really enjoy it. And my favourite historical fiction book of all time is another Alison Weir. This is Innocent Traitor. This is a historical fiction on Lady Jane Grey. We have a bit of a theme. Lady Jane Grey's life was very sad, so it's very easy to turn it into historical fiction and have the emotive side of it already. I remember I picked this up, and I picked it up in a supermarket, and it had this quote. And the quote is, "If you don't cry at the end, you have a heart of stone," from Kate Saunders, The Times. And I was like, I have never cried at a book once in my life. I probably won't cry. I got it home, I read it rather quickly, and I cried. It is the first and only fiction book that's made me cry. That's a statement for you, isn't it? It is just so beautifully written. The story of Lady Jane Grey itself is fascinating. Add to it this emotional level of historical fiction, and it just becomes something very special. And I just love it. It's wonderful, and you should definitely read it if you haven't already. So there we are, that is it. That is my favourite historical fiction books on the Tudor period. I would love to know in the comments what are some of yours. Send me your recommendations. Also, don't forget to go over to Julie's channel, The Hungry Bookworm, link in the description, so we can watch what her favourite historical fiction books are too. If you're enjoying this video in Tudor-Tember, please give this video a big thumbs up. Chat to me in the comments your favourite historical fiction, and I shall see you soon for my next video. Bye for now!